Hey everyone, sorry for the late start. There was some confusion about delay set, but we're here, we're live, and we're casting CSL StarCraft 2. Last week I was there casting StarCraft 1, and we are going to get into Illinois versus Chicago as soon as the players say that they're ready.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Both of these teams actually pretty local to each other. They're very, very close to each other. University of Illinois, of course, in Illinois. And guess what? Chicago's also a city that's in Illinois. So in a lot of ways, it's going to be a fun match just in terms of that kind of local rivalry. I harken back to like my CSL days where I remember I used to attend Purdue University, and we were really close to Indiana University. So even though Indiana University was way better than us, we'd still feel like that kind of rivalry whenever we butted heads against each other. And there'd always be a kind of that sort of friendly trash talk amongst each other. So I'm looking forward to this one, Zombie Grub.
Your host.
Oh, I am host.
Also, sorry, I reversed the mic level, so now we should be more even as we get into the game. And hopefully if you're didn't blow your eardrums out. But yeah, this should be a fun one, as you said. The rivalry between, same state is a little bit interesting. And certainly as we go through the season of CSL, we did see, like last year, for instance, or 2 years ago, or however you want to put it, I guess, that, when it came to especially like the top 8, for instance, there were a lot of teams that commonly played against each other and scrimmed against each other. And you did see the standout players that would, kind of carry their teams. Here, I'm not sure about either one of these guys. We're going to find out, as it is a ZVZ. Apparently Masters versus Diamonds, but that's never quite the perfect way to figure out who's going to win. So in the bottom left, as the red Zerg, it is Firmaz. I believe he was something else on the actual roster.
Krillman,
there you go.
Technically on the roster, and he's from Illinois. But up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Zerg player representing University of Chicago. It's Colomanado. No, sorry. Actually, I got those mixed up. This is Krillman. Oh, yeah.
Yes, a lot of reverses
starting
going
with
on.
the C that messes me up.
Right? Yeah, they both do, so it's a little messy. But now we know who everyone is.
Yeah.
We got this. It's great.
So, for those who are wondering, Colomado, a.k.a. Firmaz, going to be representing University of Chicago in the red, and Krillman going to be representing University of Illinois in the blue.
Cool. So a ZVZ to start things off in this best of 5, college versus college. For anyone unfamiliar with the format of CSL, it is, kind of intended to be kind of like the big leagues when it comes to basketball or football or whatever when you actually play in college, right? And you do have a team effort, so it makes a 1v1 game into a team effort, and there's even a 2v2 section. I believe that's the 3rd game, I want to say. And they have reduced the format from a best of 7 to a best of 5.
Yeah, so it's going to be the same format as the previous season, but like you said, it's going to be that 2v2. We got the Archon mode match, and of course the Ace match is still just a good old 1v1. But the really cool thing about CSL, like you were saying, Zombie Club, is just the idea that it's turning this 1v1 competitive, very kind of lonely game into this team effort. It's about creating that kind of community in the colleges where you get together with your team, you're improving, you're playing with your team, you're talking with them, and it just makes it a lot more fun and easier to play StarCraft in that situation.
It does, yeah. There's a lot more on the line as well when you want to win for your team as opposed to just playing on the ladder and saying, I didn't win, like, a big deal. I'm just going to stop playing for a little while. Now, Chicago was the one that was up 1-0. Yeah, and they do have some pretty powerful people on their team. Certainly, Oh My God, a Banana is a guy that I recognize because he has the funny name. But he's not like he's the absolutely dominating. We had Jon Snow participate. Like, he would actually dominate every single time it would come out. So Illinois still has a shot. The CVZs actually started off quite even with pretty similar builds. You do have a Baneling Nest, though, for Krillman and an Evolution Chamber for his opponent.
Yeah, this is definitely going to become a pretty interesting situation with the Evolution Chamber going up. This could lead into both two things. It could lead into the early upgrades or it could lead into the early drops. But without a Baneling Nest of his own, Firmaz might actually end up having a little bit of trouble over here. Queen already getting surrounded by a handful of these lings. Having to pull a few drones off the line just to stay safe and keep that queen alive, as Firmaz doesn't really have any additional queens on the way.
Yeah, that's it's a little bit scary. The Baneling is coming up here. Speed finally kicks in for Krillmon. Only one lane left, though, and that is so far dealt with handily. But Firmaz is going to start falling behind as he is not getting a third base. Krillmon's already halfway done, and he doesn't have that Baneling nest. And +1 Carapace even was delayed. And even if it wasn't, that's a long upgrade. It wouldn't have helped immediately.
On top of that, I think to make matters worse, Firmaz doesn't actually have vision of Krillmon's third base. And he's sending a few of these lings across the map, but they're going to be encountering the Banelings that actually do even buy him a little bit more time. One Baneling gets an okay connection, a moderately okay connection, but definitely these lings are going to get pushed back. And that third base will be safely established. And on top of that, also a drone lead for Krillmon.
Nothing too insane yet. They both need to certainly get higher into like the 30s, but they're on their way. Krillmon makes another batch of lings, which is probably unnecessary if he plans to be defensive, and since he's also planning on a Roach Warren, it kind of feels like a too much of a mixed bag, I suppose. But if he gets aggressive with these, cancels his third base, maybe even gets a decent trade with the lings, and then has a Roach follow-up, well, then that could actually be a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I'm getting a little worried right now for Firmaz. He's actually using his natural expansion queen to try and snipe off this Overlord, but that means he doesn't really have any more injects happening at that natural. His money is starting to build up a little bit, and he's trying to get aggressive over here, but you can just imagine if he had 600 more resources invested into this army, this attack would look a lot scarier, or even just 600 more resources invested into drones, he'd feel like he had a better transition after this.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that his third base already affected that larva count, so he might have started banking anyways, but on top of that, Queen not injecting, like, yeah, you're absolutely right, that's a big deal. There's the Q in Legacy of the Void now where you can definitely just queue up the larva injects and prepare for a big attack, and I guess it's like one upside for that Queen to gain the energy, as he is planning on attacking. His +1 Carapace finishes right now, but Roaches are out looking to snipe some of these Banelings.
Oh, I love the focus fire over here from Krillmon, able to snipe off a ton of those Banelings. Only one really ends up surviving, and hey, it might be able to get a decent hit, but no, at the last second, Krillmon does manage to pull back and will be able to clean up the entire army of Firmaz, bar 3 Zerglings that go home kind of with their tail between their legs.
Yeah, that wasn't too effective. Thing is, +1 Carapace, it changes the dynamic of Baneling versus Ling in a huge way. So sometimes that is a winning move. But simply put, if you have enough Banelings, you have enough Banelings. If you have 2 Banelings for every 10 Lings, then it's probably going to be fine.
Ling's getting surrounded, and it looks like Firmaz does manage to get a clean up on Krillmon's counterattack. Krillmon, of course, still up not only that third base much earlier on, but also quite a few number of workers, as well as those roaches coming out much earlier for Krillmon. So this is where things, I think, get really, really dicey for Firmaz. He's got to come up with some sort of maneuver. The kind of onus is on him to turn this game around.
Yeah. Well, still attacking with these Lings that, I mean, they're upgraded, so if they get surrounds, they can do some damage, but Krillmon should just never make the mistake of having no Banelings, which, hey, a lot of Zerg players do. They think the Baneling phase is over, and then that's when suddenly even upgraded Lings or even unupgraded Lings actually start doing a bunch of damage. So Krillmon's got to be careful. If he has Banelings, though, and he leaves them at home, he could just try and bulk up Roaches and go for a kill move. But he is just staying at home right now, looking to get more drones.
Yeah, and this may actually buy, I guess, both of them, in a sense, a bit of time to kind of get more into the groove of what they want. And if this continues, this kind of passivity, then Firmaz may actually be able to catch up not only with his lair, getting that up, but also just building up a nice rounded drones. When you're being aggressive, I think that it's very easy to kind of say, oh, I'm falling behind. But at this level, it's very possible for one player to just have superior mechanics and kind of overcome whatever disadvantage they were at before.
I can't say so much of the mechanics. I think, gut feeling, Krillmon's had the better, but it's really been a dynamic of the tempo of the game as opposed to like actual macro. Firmaz trying to snipe the snipe, so he wasn't macroing, but maybe that would have been worth it. And then the lack of a third base. Simply put, I think Krillmon's macro was better because his builder choices were better and his understanding of the tempo of ZVZ was better. But Firmaz had a shot with that Carapace upgrade timing, and it didn't work.
Yeah, he's sort of been playing behind ever since then. And even after the Roaches pop out and they're in low number, you can still make something happen just because, well, Carapace is also helpful for Lings versus Roaches because I think it allows you to survive one extra hit from the Roaches. But at this point, it's just starting to kind of snowball. Even with these roaches getting surrounded. Well, actually, these roaches getting surrounded is kind of starting to tilt things back in Firmaz's favor. Especially with the Banelings, if they get caught as well.
Yeah. Not a very effective attack right there,
Really?
but Krillmon does have Mutas on the way. Now he needs them desperately as Firmaz realizes an opportunity to counterattack. And Overseer's going to get in here and scout that, yeah, there's still a macro game going, but that his opponent hasn't done something weird like also go for Aspire.
Okay, well, Firmaz may have one last opportunity to turn this around because sitting 46 workers to 70 of his opponent with a 4th base on the way, and those Mutas going to be coming out very, very shortly, or should I say, some of them are already here. Oh god, he knows it now. He's trying to move in with these roaches, but he has to do so much damage in so little time.
Krillmon was banking a lot of money when he did that one attack. That's what made it look so weak, but also what gives him a lot of muties. He's going to be going up to 12 with a decent number on the ground, the roaches, to buy more time. So Firmaz is going to lose every single roach, and he's not really going to do a lot of economic damage.
Well, as the roaches get cleaned up, it's looking better and better for Krillman, and Illinois may actually be able to put one on the board to start this series off if this continues.
I think that's how it's going to go. There might have been a kill move earlier, really, for Krillmon, but waiting for the mutas, I think, is usually that just like, okay, now I can definitely win. He's got nothing to attack into the air. But I am so worried that he doesn't go for the kill move. Like, this really should be a secure win, but if he's still hesitant, Firmaz could just turtle on 3 bases and try and get a max out situation.
Yeah, you see, I mean, small little things like the counterattack with the Lings just to try and be annoying, but this is also nice for just scouting ahead and saying, oh, you aren't even dealing with the Lings, really. Well, then you definitely can't deal with my big attack coming in as a follow-up.
Yeah,
There's going to
GG.
be GG. Krillman takes game number 1 for Illinois.
All right, nicely done. Maybe I mean, it's not really an upset as he was the higher placed player, but Illinois is the one that is the worst score so far. But it's like it's week 2, literally. Saying the team's score is going to be truly affecting how they play is a little bit different. There's also another cool thing about CSL, I guess, where even if a team starts off like 0-6, for instance, well, that's pretty extreme, but let's say 0-3. It's a long league, you know, going through December and into the next year. So there's a chance that the players actually do adapt and improve.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's sort of interesting to me to have seen, I guess, OMG Banana coming out in game 4 rather than game 1 or 2. Traditionally, you end up having some of the players that you really think are, oh man, these guys are like potentially the ace of the team or something. And traditionally, you end up sending out the ace in game 1 or game 2. The idea being you always want to have your ace at least help you take one of the early games. There's no chance of you getting 3-0'd if the ace comes out in one of those early games. But in this situation, at game 4, it's possible, you know, like if you have some bad matchups early on, that your ace won't even actually make it out into the match. And that's never like a great feeling. You always feel like, oh man, we could have at least taken a game here.
Yeah.
So that is a bit interesting. At least in my mind, OMG a Banana is actually kind of the ace, just because I will always remember Cheesadelphia. I think it was 4 or 3. One of those two. I think it might have been Cheesadelphia 3. He was actually one of the players that beat True in a best of 3, which was like, whoa, this guy is actually like not too bad.
Yeah, that is pretty impressive. You have the next lobby getting set up now. We have our player from Chicago at the very least here, ready to go. But as you're saying, oh my god, Banana gonna be coming down a little bit later. Now it's, I guess, unless Illinois 3-0s, it's guaranteed, which I guess is possible. But it's going to be a ZVP, Aurea Skalbig, oh my love God, versus Trevor Moore, which is a lot easier to say. Please, who's going under the name of Pancakes right now. For you,
I like
OC.
pancakes. Pancakes are great.
I prefer waffles.
Oh yeah, there used to be that whole argument for you.
Yeah,
remember this.
and then chat decided on pancakes. That's why my emote is a pancake or pancakes.
Solid. I can dig that. But this is going to be a PVZ for those who are wondering. And again, just to reiterate the kind of format for CSL, we go from two 1v1s for game 1 and game 2. And then game 3 goes into the 2v2. So that's always actually a really, really interesting match. But Actually, well, we'll see how things go. It is going to be a TV, uh, Terrans versus Terrans in
T
the
T T
third
T T.
match.
It's like T T. Well, that's it's interesting. They got rid of the Archon mode, which I mean, it actually makes kind of sense. I don't know the exact reason. I didn't hear like X, Y, or Z, but I gotta imagine that it just. First of all, the coordination is always a little bit difficult. 2v2s are already a little bit uncommon, right? In 1v1 StarCraft, we have our set way of making our lobbies, and we aren't even used to inviting more than like 4 people. And then additionally, Archon just simply didn't live up to the hype that originally was going to when oh god, I have to like do math here. Last
Math
year
on stream.
was 2016. In 2015, when they had the Archon mode, the beginning of 2015 was actually pretty hyped for Archon still. Like there was definitely a chance it would be a really good game mode. And then, well, Blizzard didn't really think so, I guess. And co-op became the next big thing. And lots of people stopped playing Archon, which is disappointing as an Archon fan.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate that things didn't become more popular with Archon mode. I always kind of like to put up a little bit of that just to the fact that you always had to have that partner with you that you decided to queue up with. And while there were things like chat channels that were made for like, oh, I'm looking for a team to do Archon mode with, I think just the ease of saying, well, I'm just going to play 2v2 instead was so much better in terms of the, I guess like how smooth of an experience it is to just say, I'm going to queue up for 2v2 and I will just get assigned a partner. Of course, Archon mode does require a lot of coordination, so it kind of makes sense, but
yeah,
that is just the way the cookie crumbles.
I still like, I would play so many games with random Archon partners. Like, I don't understand their insistence not to just make it random. But looks like we finally have our Illinois player joining up here. Aureus G is the in-game name. That's a little bit easier to say. Aureus Skullbig. What a name. What a mouthful.
Okay. Confirm that these are the correct players since this is a slightly different name. I'm pretty sure it's the correct player because it's Aureus Colby G. Aureus G sounds about right, but
it's pretty close. I think we're good to go on this one. I'm just waiting for his or her, I guess. I don't think we had any woman in CSL last year, the one that I cast. Maybe one. I'm like really trying to remember, honestly. As I said, CSL lasts a very long time, so a lot of like the first half was 2 years ago, which is why I keep tripping up here. So I really can't remember some of those, but it looks like the players are ready. Let's get into it.
We're gonna hop into it. Odyssey for game number 2, and once again we do have Illinois sitting up 1-0 in this best of 5. First one of 3 wins the entire series, so. That is why the 2v2 is actually very, very important in these kind of CSL matches because you can win a series with just the 1v1s, but that 2v2 is always potentially there, like the momentum upsetter. You don't necessarily have the aces that your opponent does or your opposing team does. 2v2 can really change and shift things up just because 2v2 is a very different game than 1v1 in StarCraft.
That, yeah, definitely is true. Now we have the game loaded in. It's going to be on Odyssey in the bottom right as the red Protoss for University of Chicago. It is Pancakes. That's what we're going to call him by.
And his opponent up here on the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the green Zerg player from University of Illinois. It's Aureus G. What does the G stand for, Zombie Grub?
The rest of his name. Oh, wait, there's no G in the rest of his name. I was bamboozled. Well, there is at the end. So his name on the roster is Aureus Skullby G, but then in here it's Aureus G. I don't know. Maybe it's Aureus Colby. Maybe is that like
maybe
his
it
name?
doesn't stand for anything. He or she is just a G.
Clever. So we do have a pool first with a quick gas, especially against Zerg. I'm like a little bit scared, but. Or sorry, against Protoss, I'm a little bit scared. If it's a Terran, I mean, the early Lings, it's a whole dynamic that can be explained thoroughly. And we actually have Pancakes not going for a Gateway Nexus, but rather Gateway, opening up potentially aggressively, actually even chronoing out a Zealot.
Zombie Grub, do you remember a map called Akalon Wastes?
I do.
This is this almost feels like this kind of weird, uh, I I guess Legacy of the Void version of this very, very old build from Wings of Liberty, where the idea was you got 2 gateways to wall off the front of your base, create that kind of thing, and then you just chrono boost out a bunch of zealots while you grab a Nexus behind it, and you send the zealots out across the map against a Zerg player, and they have to make a bunch of these units to help defend, while you are just getting up an economy behind it. Now, there were more all-in-ish versions of this, but the general idea is still the same. The funny thing is, though, Aureus isn't really looking to drone up and get up an economy. Aureus is looking to make units anyways with a Roach Horn coming down so quickly.
I'm really now confused by both players' choices. So I was going to mention that what the Zerg player did could either be, construed as like really aggressive. With the Roachborn, obviously, it is going to be aggressive. Or maybe a preparation of someone he knows plays double gateway opener so that you kill the Adepts, usually not Zealots, and immediately get a counter in before they can really like protect their wall. Because Pancakes opened up with Zealots, though, and heavily delayed the 7NX core, I'm really not sure if Aureus was like aware this would happen, but he's like directly countering, I think, what Pancakes is doing even harder than if it had been like the Adept double gateway opener.
Okay, well, Pancakes checks for the third, sees that there is none, at least at that location. Is going to go straight into the natural and see, oh, there's actually no drones here either. If he's really paying attention, then they will know, wait a second, something fishy is afoot. And now a bunch of these roaches pop out, and these Zealots are going to get pushed back.
Yeah, this is why it's such a hardcore denial, right? Like, at least Adepts could have been like, nope, 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 and try to shade out. But here, the Zealots just got to run back, and they're just going to be fruitless against the Roaches when they are defending. They're going to outrun the Roaches, which is a slow, not epic battle, but they can't really help take them out, having to be in melee range.
Yeah, and the Mothership Core was only just now finishing up. The first 2 Stalkers, or I should say first 3 Stalkers, are going to be popping out soon. So this does get really, really weird from here, because there's going to be 1 Photon Overcharge available, but if a handful of Ravagers are made, then, and especially with these Zealots, or some of the Zealots actually getting caught, Aureus has a real opportunity here to bust through this Protoss defense.
Certainly Ravagers would be very helpful. 1 is on the way. He's just back off from any Photon Overcharge since, another one's going to be 10 seconds away.
All right, one of the Zealots getting low, but managing to survive. It will regenerate the hit points over there. Photon Overcharge is going to be expiring now, and there's no more available for at least another 6 or so seconds. 1 gateway goes down right after it pops out an additional Stalker, but this army count for Pancakes is still holding strong, and he may be able to start taking some better engagements over here. The Zealots trading off with those Lings, and after that is just the Roaches and the Ravagers.
Well, the Lings are Speedlings, so the quickest reinforcements possible belong to the Zerg, and they will complicate matters for these Stalkers drastically. The second pylon, the one that was going to be overcharged, which the Mothership Core had an overcharge, is gone, delays Warp Gate, delays production.
All right, another pylon is about to finish up, but Corrosive Vials are already coming down on that pylon. Puts an overcharge used, but it goes down before it's too effective. Still, though, the roach count is getting reduced, but oh man, without Warp Gate technology, without the gateways, without the raw production, Pancakes is just starting to get more and more overrun here.
Yeah. 2 more gateways were built when he realized what was going to happen, but without Warp Gate, as you said, it's too slow. More Speedlings coming in here, Probe starting to go down, and now Aureus G is really getting the damage he was looking for.
Oh man, couple of pylons trying to come down the high ground. I like the idea from Pancakes. Try and wall your opponent off, prevent them from just escalating this into a full-blown victory, but there's only so much you can do from here. The Mothership Core is desperately just trying to do some damage and has another Photon Overcharge available. Theos just sneak on into the main base, and there's nothing there to defend Zombie Grub.
Yeah, that is so many Lings. Zealots are being made again to help clear up the Lings, but there's not going to be enough of them. It's also 1 pylon powering his only production. Ravager isn't micro, and that's a bit of a mistake, but more and more Lings just come through here.
Yeah, as the reinforcements starts continue to stream on in, Aureus G is already starting to drone up behind us on top of the damage that they're already doing. So as more and more workers fall, Aureus G actually just starts getting a transition in place with a layer going up and everything. But remember, University of Illinois was already up 1-0, and while they were kind of the underdogs in a sense, 0-1 versus 1-0, coming into this particular series, they're now going to be sitting up 2-0 in this particular series, which is a really, really nice spot for them.
that really puts a lot of emphasis on that 2v2. TVT, like too many T's. That's also going to be a very volatile matchup, no matter how it's actually going to be evenly matched out, because I don't know. I don't know the players quite yet, but it's going to be coming that soon enough. Aureus is in a winning position. Can't see him throwing away this one, but Pancakes isn't ready to tap out.
Oh god, Pancakes isn't even mining gas at this point. Actually, I take it back. Pancakes isn't actually mining at this point, which I think is the bigger problem here. And while the Lings will finally start to die off, a gold base being taken over here for Aureus G, because why not? What can his or her opponent really do about this at this point? They got 2 Zealots on a Mothership core. That's about it.
I love that now I remembered like to include that maybe it could be a woman.
Yeah.
Like we gotta always say it. And I think chat would have mentioned something at this point, because I know you guys are here trying to cheer on both the CSL and your teammates, fellow practice partners, which is awesome to see.
Well, I do like that Aureus G, after getting up a very sufficient number of workers and also just preparing, this is actually the sign of some players who are fairly experienced in StarCraft. They think when they get into these kind of winning positions, okay, what can my opponent still do to turn this around? What if they just had some proxy pylon that was going to be set up for some kind of aggression, but during all that that kind of roach and lings swarming through the main base, they threw down a Twilight Council that proxy, started going for a Dark Shrine or something. So getting up that layer is nice preparation for that. They're trying to think of preventative ways to stop their opponent from just winning this game, or like turning the game back on its head with one foul swoop. So that kind of safety is important, but now realizing, okay, yeah, it is time to go for that kill move again.
Actually, even before the attack started, Aureus had Ling scouting around, so
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Very
love
paranoid.
when players do that.
yeah, his parents are really like, very protective, like looking towards what could possibly mess this up. But a nice Roach Ravager, more Ravagers. You know, the one Ravager is kind of comical now that we're later in the game, but say there's like 6 or something, and I just don't see Pancake holding for very long. Back in the day, especially Wings of Liberty, a 2-base Protoss could hold forever, literally forever, but not so much anymore.
Oh, man, I can taste the salt on that comment on But Pylon is going to get lower and lower on health. The Fortune Overcharge only lasts for so long. And even if it did last a bit longer, it was not going to be long for this world. The Gateway is depowered. The Stalkers getting A moved on, or I should say stutter stepped on. And eventually, Aureus is going to just claim victory in this game.
Yeah. Desperate probe pool. Even pulling the probes in the main base.
Yeah. Protoss probes just never feel quite as effective as enemy probes. Oh my god, we got Manor hatcheries coming down right now. Aureus is saying, "Get on out. I got schoolwork to do. I got places to be."
Right? It's 45 workers to 2, 1. Where even is that one? Oh, it just popped out. Oh, that's the second one. Oh, GG. No Manor hatchery. Quick, leave.
Will we see it?
Okay.
No, Dorius GG claims victory before the Manor hatchery. So really, I mean, that was probably the best win that you can get in that situation, where you know you're going to lose the game, but you also prevent them from doing the Manor move. Like they invest the time into doing the Manor move. They don't get it down. So a nice little counterplay from University of Chicago there.
Yeah, that was a very weird opener, as I was saying about the build orders, just the very beginning of the game. But I really felt like Aureus was getting the better, the counter build in. There's something to be said about the fact that Pancake was even able to scout what was happening because he made 2 early Zealots. But Aureus just, you know, as long as he was able to break the front and flood in Lings, Pancake just had a really weird build that wouldn't accommodate for it, you know? Especially seeing like Gateway production being stalled out and all, but just no additional tech either. I think most of the time we see a Stargate on the way or something. Nah, nothing like that. But we're going to get into 2v2. This put Illinois up 2-0, which means this next game, the 2v2, could be the last, and it is a TT versus TT. And this usually takes a little while longer to get set up, although for once every player has responded. I'm going to check in here. If everyone is in the lobby, I'm going to be amazed, but also super happy. Okay, still missing two players. I'm just going to take a quick little break. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll be back very shortly with 2v2. Hey everyone, we are back ready to go for the 2v2 just as soon as the other players say go, and there it is. It's going to be on Shrines of Lizul, and it is Terran all around, all 4 players.
And this is just your favorite kind of match, though, Zombigar, right? As a Terran player, you should have the ultimate insight into this 2v2.
I mean, I love TVT, and I think in 2v2 there's still the same dynamics that exist in 1v1 TVT, but it is a 2v2, and that has a lot to talk about, I guess. But let's do the introductions first. Oh, this is a very small map, for the love of God. Oh my God. In the top right, to start things off, I suppose, your Team Illinois, it is Frost and Neverland.
And on the left-hand side of the map, we have the teal Terran player. It is Scott. And in the bottom side, we have the yellow Terran player. It's Jivon, representing, of course, University of Chicago, sitting down 0-2.
Yeah. Took me a little while to figure out this overlay, but yeah, Frost and Neverland are the guys that are potentially closing out this series, and they are already sending their SCVs forward. So I wanted to talk about, as a TVT, I think the same strengths kind of exist where you want to open up one base generally. Even other races kind of want to open up one base in 2v2, right? So like keep true to that for TVT. And then there's still a lot of emphasis on tech, I believe, as well, where, going for the mass amount of Marines generally, it can be good, but usually it's not the preferred way to play. And also, since it is 2v2, to expect cheese everywhere has got to be on the forefront of everyone's mind. And apparently is why Frost Neverland scouted, but also the gas block. That's a unique twist to this.
Oh, yeah, that gas steal is going to be very, very annoying. Do not let the colors fool you, as teal and blue may be similar in color, but they are very much enemies to each other. So that is going to be very annoying, especially in 2v2, because you were talking about how tech is so important in the matchup oftentimes, and cheese can be very common. So most Terran players, they like to go for that earlier second gas geyser in this matchup and try and tech up to factory a little bit faster. But instead, looks like it's going to force Scott into going for a faster command center instead.
Yeah, I didn't quite see the timing on it. That could have been literally on purpose studied because of the map, because they already have advanced notice who they're going to play. That he timed that out, so the 17 refinery, for instance, would have been blocked. I wasn't paying attention, but if Scott's plan was to go for one rack expand, that was really no skin off his back. It was a little bit, actually. It did last a very long time, but it's not as bad as it could be. But if he is fearful and wanted to go into like a 1-1-1 right off the bat, then that is a scary position for him to be in, and they're going to have to change their plans.
Yeah, so what this is going to mean is that Frost, having gone for, I guess, the barracks factory and going into the starport, we have Neverland also looking to do something somewhat similar, although the starport going to be a little bit further delayed. Whereas we have University of Chicago, who basically have one player who's gone for the 1-1-1 setup and one player who went for the faster command center, is adding additional barracks. This is going to, I guess, favor Neverland in terms, or I guess University of Illinois a little bit more in terms of early aggression, but as the game goes on, Chicago will feel a little bit more comfortable.
I was very confused because I didn't see a starport for Neverland, and he actually stopped down a second factory, which was just scouted. A couple Reapers come in. By a couple, I mean quadruple Reapers come in, and poor Scott is like, please, for the love of God, help me, and Javon's like, no way. If he comes over there, he's actually going to put himself in a little bit of danger too, but a Cyclone should take care of like basically any amount of Reapers. The damage is sort of done.
Moment where you know that the teammates are just, or I should say, Scott is just sitting, of course, on some voice communication platform saying, "Hey, so can you help me out? Please let me not die." Jivon's just like, die slowly.
Yeah, just take as long as possible. That's a legitimate thing, though. So 2 Reapers and a Cyclone do take out 4 Reapers, but they, if they were running around, more SVs could have still gone down. It's just that you want to really make sure. The worst thing is to try and defend your partner and then be like, oh, wait, I didn't actually have enough units. So there's a bit of a delay there. Also revealing his own units, I guess, just in case he was doing anything weird. It's got to be noted. It is a starport, and Neverland and Frost have been focusing so much on killing Scott that they haven't actually scouted that.
Yeah, and not only that, well, they are continuing to do more and more damage to Scott, who's now having to pull his workers to try and remain alive in this game. Poor Scott. Jivon's not helping this time. Scott actually may be seeing his life flash before his eyes over here as he starts to lose every single worker that he has remaining.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, I think before this, Scott was actually still okay with the damage that he had taken earlier because he just had that faster command center by so much. But eventually things get pushed back and Scott is down to 8 workers.
Now, Frost just had to pull every single worker away from this Banshee, so that, you know, is obviously a complication. He was going to go for his own Banshee, and instead has to get a Raven. The Cyclone was denied, and as much damage as they did to Scott, he did that thing you were talking about. He died slowly. You know, he took as much time as possible, and Javon was able to get maybe some equalizing pressure. You look at both players here, and they really have similar situations. One person's in the dumps, the other person's doing okay.
Yeah, but Frost is doing more and more damage, it looks like, to Gvon, who was the untouched player.
Oh, no.
His missile turret taking so long to actually finish, but unfortunately it just keeps losing the worker that's building the missile turret. Finally, it finishes up the Marines. It almost killed that Banshee, but it gets a serious amount of work done. 15 kills, and that's on a couple of Marines as well as a lot of workers.
And Javon has both Banshees in here, so Cyclones and auto turrets usually deal with this. Looks like Scott didn't, or sorry, Neverland, Steel and Blue, so similar. Neverland didn't micro his Cyclone, and the other one gets away just in time. Very close, and we'll come back for dealing more damage. But it's back down to like, okay, well, what team comes out ahead here? Because Frost and Scott are the ones that had to take the damage. Scott had that second command center. Frost only just plants his down now.
Yeah, the only player that really hasn't been obliterated in terms of economy was basically Neverland, who was able to eventually get up that command center. He was able to get up the double factory, and while there is no starport out from Neverland, he's got missile turrets ready to defend against aggression. He's got an army and is actually pretty much doubling the supply of almost anyone in the game besides Scott.
Yeah. Not quite, you know, combine Scott and Javon together and you have his supply, but it's getting up there. And if he's able to just, you know, mine away peacefully, which seems to be the case, especially because he's going mech, he could have the too scary of an army even on his own.
Oh, really nice macro back over here from Scott to try and pull back that weakened Cyclone at the last second and absorb quite a few shots and really start to even up that supply count a little bit. Neverland losing quite a few units there. And the Siege Tanks as well, getting some really nice pot shots over here. I'm going to be able to snipe off one of the Siege Tanks that pushes a little too far forward. Neverland is going to get forced back, trying to move in here by himself. Not really going to be too productive.
Yeah. Of course, the counterpoint to what I was saying right there is that if Neverland gets a little too eager, is like, what I'm still doing okay, we just did so much damage. Mech isn't very good at the beginning. You know, you push like that and you technically have a superior army supply, but there's a nice concave, well, then you're the one that messed up. And he did lose a couple of units very unnecessarily, but I think that was a wise pullback there. And he should just start, you know, again, playing to his strengths, which is that he hasn't really been touched. And should just eventually, I don't know about max out in 2 bases, but get to a really decent army supply.
Yeah, I agree. It gets a little weird in 2v2 just because you could be up, say, 40 or 20 workers to most of your opponent's bases and everything. But if you're in a 2v2 and your teammate is not necessarily doing super well either, then realistically, your opponents, the longer you wait, it's actually 4 CC versus 2 CC in that case. Or in this case, I guess it's 3 CC, Frost only having just finished up his own 4th base. So over time, I think that Gvon and Scott can catch up. So this is a really narrow window you have to hit where you have just a big enough army with that mech to actually go and attack and do something substantial. But if you wait too long, then your opponents will actually potentially end up catching up a lot.
Especially on such a small map. It's a little surprising. So I think when you do have Terran teams, there is definitely a very smart decision for one player to go mech, the other person to go bio, because they can really complement each other. One defends early, the other one is unbeatable late game. One can defend the drops, and one can hold the front, kind of thing. But on these really small maps, there's going to be like that time where Frost, who was supposed to kind of like, I guess, protect and harass and probably leave these bases open for his partner, will be the one being like, hey, help me out here. So Neverland's got to be like really just smart in his positioning because he's going to kind of be covering 4 bases. And then if he ever tries to get his 3rd 5 bases, like that'll be very difficult to do on any map, but especially this one.
Yeah, this map really allows you to get up that one player to get up a 3rd base. And ooh, I love that scan from Scott. Detects and sees that gold base being taken right now for Neverland. And with Scott, of course, getting up his own third base, this is kind of going to be okay. They're going to be evening up those worker counts, or I should say the base counts. So things can be okay, especially with Scott seeming to have pretty good macro despite all the damage he's taken. Already up to 92 supply, not that far behind Neverland anymore.
Yeah, despite all the pressure, literal SCV damage, and then just the hiccups that arise when dealing with that stuff, he managed to keep his head above water. It was actually impressive in a way to look back at the supply and be like, oh, he's not totally screwed. And that had a little bit to do with the fact that Frost was almost equally screwed for a time. There was certainly an evening effect, but looks like Illinois, I'm trying to remember, Illinois is actually looking to push forward here, and it is a scary army when everything's combined together.
Oh yeah, especially if they get situated in a nice spot. But man, the Sea-Chanks over here for Scott as well as Jivan are already in a really, really nice spot.
Ooh.
Sieging away, picking off these Cyclones, picking off the tanks. They post a little bit too far forward. And while Jivan loses a little bit of the production over here in the main base ramp, of course, we're still going to get a little bit of a bit of a danger zone.
Uh-oh.
They're looking okay over here, I think, for Frost and Scott. Or sorry, Frost or Scott and Jivan.
Yeah, I'm like trying to determine who has combat shields, and I'm confusing myself. Someone just lost combat shields. Jivan just lost combat shields with that. Oh,
There's
that
only
took a
one
while.
player with combat shields right now. Now the second combat shield finished.
Yeah, there you go. So this is tricky though. So again, going back to the fact that it is specifically TVT, just like in 1v1 TVT, you think you have your opponent sieged up, and then they do a doom drop. So that's exactly what happens. Not really doomy, but double drop when you have everything rallied forward is going to be able to do a lot of damage.
I really like this because you have to think of this in a TVT. Yes, this isn't quite the Archon mode that we used to have in CSL, but in a way, this is probably the most similar thing that you can have to Archon mode as the game moves on. So in TVT, when it gets to Super Lake, and to be effective.
He was attacking his own command center.
Oh.
Okay, that could have gone badly.
Oh my god, I didn't actually even notice that for a moment. I was just like, Medivacs, they're doing a great job surviving.
Yeah. No, that could have been a little bit worse, but he does clean things up. You know, Jivan had to stim a lot with only a couple of Medivacs, and even that turret helped out a little bit. But there's another drop now from Scott that is trying to avoid being detected. This Reaper is helping him out here. He just decides to boost it anyways. There are missile turrets, but nothing else, and he just actually goes for the command center. Cancel.
I really enjoyed that little bit of time where the Siege Tank was running away from a Reaper, and the Siege Tank lost half of its health. That was just a great picture. But yeah, the double medevac drop gonna end up backing out, especially after seeing the missile turrets over there. But still, denying that base is really, really nice for them.
Yeah, I just gotta keep tabs on who is actually performing well. Neverland versus Scott is really the name of the game. But then Jivan has caught up more than Frost has. So I actually am giving this to Chicago more and more. Okay, that was not great, but still. The only scary thing for me is as time goes on, this mech army would be better. It's not actually swiftly moving to a max situation because it's been, it's been a very hectic game, first of all, but also there's just been trades, right? And it takes a long time for mech, no matter what happens, to actually get maxed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that University of Chicago has shown that they potentially have slightly better mechanics, which whenever they do have these periods of, oh, I have a bit of time to relax, and oh, nice snipe off on that medevac. Scott does get the cancel on the command center, it looks like, a Frost, but
I think that was
every
kill.
single time it seems like University of Chicago has a bit of time to work with. They either manage to have some drops happen from Jivan that does a ton of damage or some form of harassment, and Scott just seems to have really good macro mechanics. So it's a really nice pairing of, you know, the aggressor, the person who keeps putting on the aggression and setting their opponents behind in the form of Jivan, and Scott, who's just like, well, if you give me space, I will make something magical happen with it.
Yeah, Scott's really looking to carry with the supply. He has utilized it, I think, better than Neverland did, especially since Neverland tried to do a contain, and it kind of failed. They had to pull back. I think the drop from Frost is cleaned up much easier than anything else. That's Frost took, I guess, from Jivan. And now this huge push on the Frost third base is just gonna, well, make sure it never gets up.
Yeah, as you can see that the players are starting to get spread a little bit thin for University of Illinois as they're trying to cover all of these bases on the north side, or I should say all the way from the left-hand side to the right-hand side.
No, I don't like this move at all. Oh, God. Neverland's going for mass battlecruiser.
I mean, it can be kind of nice, super late game TVT, but is this going to be a bit too early to try something like
Right.
this?
I think it's too small of a map and too much of a delicate scenario to try and transfer. He is still looking over Frost, and Battlecruisers are going to help that much with that.
God, Siege Tank's getting so many pot shots off on these Hellbats and the Thor, taking out a good amount of supply. Neverland gets the cleanup over here, but his teammate is not going to be faring so well on the other side of the map.
No. It's funny, they don't like a diagonal, they crisscross here. But Scott doing amazing amount of damage, is dropping into 2 tanks and not sniping them. Yeah, there he goes, moves forward, but his Marines actually took a lot of damage. Maybe Neverland can come back with his units, but he had spread himself so thin and then went into battle cruisers, which are just, they're expensive, they're slow moving, and they take a very long time to build.
Yeah, you know, funny enough though, I do feel as though Neverland is getting a bit of that time. He's losing some of these siege tanks to the front, but in terms of economy, I do feel like he's kind of been untouched, and now these battlecruisers are actually going to be kind of helpful in sniping off some of the medevacs. Yamato cannon does not let those medevacs escape. The Marines all get cleaned up, and yeah, Frost is dying. There's no doubt about it, but Zombie Grub, the golden rule of 2v2, die slowly.
Yeah. Frost has just taken so much damage. He also, I just noted this, had never ever added on many upgrades, just a single +1 attack. Whereas Javon and Scott have both gotten 2-2. So while Javon's not in a very good position, and he's actually mining out of all of his bases, just really kind of finally taking this third, at least his units, pound for pound, are better. And they are looking to just probably just dominate the right side of the map so that they only have to worry about Neverland. But Neverland is, again, that guy that's untouched, getting to a late game mech. And while I'm still not sure about battlecruisers, he's slowly getting there.
Yeah, even getting up those armor upgrades, +2 armors. I mean, every armor upgrade for these battlecruisers actually makes a world of difference, just because his main competition is going to be, yeah, maybe a few Vikings that are here now for Scott, but it's going to be a lot of Marines that I guess he has to worry about if he doesn't have that ground force. So, oh boy, that's excessive Yamatos.
Yeah, right? So I think that's the second time they saw the battlecruisers. I actually believe...
I think that's why the Viking production started, is
right,
because he's seen the battlecruisers.
That they saw him over here and they were defending. But there's not a lot of Vikings.
Marines for Frost, kind of going into the meat grinder that is Widow Mines and Siege Tanks and a ton of Marines. But we're getting to that point where Scott is nearly maxed out. Neverland is pretty close to maxed out as well, so we could be seeing the big battle as these two players or two sides duke it out.
Both teams getting some expansions up, although Frost is going to be probably denied again soon enough. I think the extra problem to battlecruisers is that you're not just facing one army of Marines and Vikings, you're potentially facing 2, and that's where I think battlecruisers just won't hold up like mass tanks would. I think if you max out with 30 tanks, unless the concave is the biggest concave I've ever seen, 200 Marines will still die to them. But I'm not sure about the battlecruisers.
Well, the kind of funny thing is also, though, that the battlecruisers handle these tanks pretty well, just because they can Yamato them from a nice little distance, but you have to be careful. The Hellbats are there to try and protect the battlecruisers from the Marines, make sure they don't get too close to them for comfort, but with all the Hellbats gone, now the battlecruisers are going to be very exposed. Scott and Javon pounce on them, trying to get the kills, but they're almost holding their own, just not barely quite able to do it. Wait a second, Zombie Grub, are they actually doing this?
Oh yeah, of course they're doing it. I actually saw that move in from Neverland, and I was just, there's like a caster camera. I was like, no. I think he was expecting his Hellbats to do damage, but funnily enough, one, he probably should have had tanks instead of like that many Hellions, or any tanks at all, I should say. And then 2, which is the funny part, Hellions would have been better. He would have actually been able to reach the Marines instead of his Hellbats dying prematurely. And that, I don't think that's a difference maker, but that would have been something better.
Yeah, the battlecruisers still kind of low on health. They did teleport out, so he kept a good chunk of them alive. He still lost 4 of them throughout the battles, but man, the battlecruisers getting the position on these siege tanks, taking those out with the Yamatos, and now the Marines are kind of left by themselves, and yeah, there are mostly just orbital commands over here. Oh my god, Scott, that's not your side of the map, man. Where is this orbital command going?
It's got dreams. Certainly something that's been missing, by the way, from Neverland was a couple more teleports in that fight. I think his teleport was on cooldown. That's why he just lost these 2, which is unfortunate. Master Pairs probably should have gone down first and foremost. But Scott just ran a lot of army without healing, without presence, like knowledge of where battlecruisers were into a meat grinder. He didn't have enough, and now his supply is in the dumpster. And they're just going to continue building Marine tank, where I think that stop with the tanks, go pure Marine, and more to the point, maybe go moto mines. Neverland hasn't gotten many tanks past the ones that he's lost defending.
But at the same time, Zombie Grub, Neverland is actually sitting the highest in supply by a non-insignificant margin, 150 supplying, whereas the next closest is actually going to be Frost, his teammate, and Gvon. I actually think that these battlecruisers may have done enough and they've stayed alive long enough that this could be the kill move.
I think it is. That's what I was trying to say, is that like Scott initially had like a good engagement, and then they attacked apart from each other. So Frost actually took Gvon's army on, and Scott hadn't healed up any units and didn't realize how many battlecruisers were still left. He definitely should have just continued like trying to build up a bigger army, but now they're losing bases. Frost is coming back with a vengeance after being allowed this base, finally, after like 10-15 minutes. And the battlecruisers are not going to be taken on by 10 Marines at a time. You need like maxed out Marines or something a little bit more explosive, and that's it. GG, the battlecruisers actually did it.
Wow, and that is going to be that, as we do end up having Illinois taking game number 3. Holy cow, Zombie Grub, I did not see that end coming after that kind of early game.
Well, the early game was, funnily enough, Illinois, right? Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there an S there?
Chicago's, yeah.
No, it was Illinois, right? Because the Chicago was the one that was... Scott was the one that was being pressured.
Super early game. We had Scott just kind of like holding on by a thread with a faster command center, and after that gas steal. Yeah, it was barely able to kind of bounce back, and then it was you're right. It was like the early game was like that, and then the mid game really ended up becoming something totally different, where Chicago just had like that really nice pairing of mechanics from Scott, and then Gvon with like the really nice harassment, and kind of turned that game around. But I guess the battlecruiser, I doubted it, Zombie Girl, but it worked.
I really doubted it too, because I think the thing is that battlecruisers are funnily like good, especially with armor upgrades against pure Marine. But when there's 2 armies of Marines collapsing in what was only 5 battlecruisers, I was like, well, that's like easy math right there. But then shortly after, it became 1 set of army already damaged, attacking 6 or 7 battlecruisers. The rally plus the ones he had to would teleport. So, I mean, he might have still been able to snowball just because he would have been able to repair his battlecruisers and he still had a lot of bases. But I think that was a momentum loss, and that Chicago might have been able to mine a little bit more and build another Marine army, and instead kind of got caught up in their victory and just continued forward and actually ended up losing both sides. That was a pretty good. That was actually a really fun 2v2 though. Like I'm glad that I'm excited about it, and I'm glad that I was wrong. I really think the battlecruisers are going to work, but that's the type of thing that's funny. It's like, one person's absolutely dead, but then the partner kind of gets a good decomposition, and then the other person keeps dying, but this guy's like, no, just hold on. And battlecruisers ended up being that perfect, just die slowly unit.
Yeah, that was really awesome. And I especially just enjoyed, like, in a weird way that kind of ended up being, like, because it was a Terran versus Terran, it almost ended up being like our Archon mode match in a way. Because you got one race, you're duking it out, you kind of got a little bit of the micro and macro for both sides, kind of against each other, even if it's not the traditional like 1-player macro, 1-player micro setup. It was a lot of fun, and we got to actually see a bit of that kind of super weird TBT metagame where you have the kind of 1-1-1 openings being a little bit more popular. You have like the Banshee harassment, the Raven auto turret harassment going on, and then of course the Doom drops, and eventually leading up to the battlecruiser transition. It's I won't say all textbook TBT, but it's all like part of that TBT metagame.
I feel like that's one of those great 2v2s. Like, forget about the TBT aspect. That 2v2 aspect just made it really, really fun. And I love that. I hope that Frost was just like, I'm not useless yet, man. Like, I died slowly, and I believe in you, but I got some power too. Because we were so focused on, like, Neverland, or, actually, I'm starting to forget the names already, but we're so focused on the bio guy. Williams. Yeah. It was Scott versus the battlecruisers that we missed the 2 guys around 100 supply kind of duking it out, because they actually had a mini TVT themselves. They were still contributing to their teammates. But All right, the nerding out aside, that's the end of the cast because that was a 3-0, which I consider a surprise. And what's even funnier is that you mentioned how keeping one of your ace guys for the fourth game could really backfire. And this has happened now for Chicago, I think. We had high hopes for Oh My God, a Banana, but he couldn't even come out.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is going to mean that the two teams are now tied up 1-1 in the CSL. So still very early on, of course. All of these standings will change heavily as the early stages of the CSL kind of go on. But it's always really nice. It feels good. It's like a nice moral victory when you take those series wins, especially early on, because then you get a little bit more pride for your team and everything. You say like, yeah, we're not just like that team that kind of start off the season 0-3 or 0-2 or something. We're actually taking games. We got a chance to make it to that playoffs. You boost that self-esteem, that morale, gets people to practice more. All these things really do make a difference. Like that group dynamic is so important in trying to maintain it. It's something that I don't think a lot of people even kind of forget sometimes, how when you do lose that morale, that can totally happen. People just little bit of that motivation to play quite as much.
Yeah, and especially sweeping is pretty powerful for that. And I'm hoping that they're giving a lot of pats on the back to each other, although they're probably each in their dorms on their own computers. But internet back pats. Sure. Guys, that is going to finish up the cast, as you said. So congratulations to Illinois for defeating Chicago 3-0 at the start of the season. There's a lot of games left, but also happening, of course, on this channel is the SCR Collegiate Star League. So StarCraft Brood War, for anyone who's interested, will be happening Thursday. I won't be there. It's going to be Fear Dragon and Joe casting, but I'm going to usually be casting that one because Brood War is awesome. So stay tuned for that. Follow the channel. If you want to join the Discord, I think that is an open invite. If you guys just want to hang out and talk to other Collegiate Star League, I guess, players. If you're a player yourself and you're like, what is this about? Then definitely check it out. Got to see so many teams sign up again and manage to get as many players, and a lot of returning players too that haven't graduated, I suppose, and still play StarCraft.
Discord in the chat. Find that link nice and easily over to that Discord channel if you want to participate.
Yep. And that does it for us. So you can follow me at TG Gaming. You can follow him at FearDragon64. Make sure to follow the channel, and we'll see you guys. Well, he'll see you this Thursday. Bye.